Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining in today. We're very happy to have all of you on a Saturday morning discuss with us about how we can make our businesses more sustainable. We have with us today uh, specifically two people who I've known for a very long time, and both who sort of walk the talk when it comes to literally practicing sustainability, right from the fact that their businesses itself are built on sustainable products to actually the journey of why they started that. It's great to have both Geeta and Shamla here with us, sharing real experiences and real troubles of incorporating sustainable packaging, even more so in sustainable products. I think the decision becomes a little more personal and a little more sustainable when we talk about incorporating what we believe in terms of scaling up as a business. So, welcome Geeta, welcome Shamla. This is going to be a very informal, open discussion, format. We're not looking at gory presentations because we want this to be absolutely, real deal. Just to very quickly introduce, Geeta is ex-Tata alumnus, and she has a very interesting journey of why Parama started. I will, of course, leave her to give more details of that. She is the founder of Parama Naturals, a skincare wellness product company which focuses on purity as a core value and harnesses the potential of turmeric in across all her products. So welcome, Geeta. Thank you so much for taking out the time today. And we
Thanks,
also
Hamsa.
sure. And we have Shamla, who is, I think, one of the fittest people I've known on this planet. And Sham and I go back, I believe, about almost 10 years. Thanks, Shamla, for coming in. She is the co-founder of Sampoorna Ahara, a whole plant food-based, uh, you know, company that focuses on creating these food products. And of course, and the unique part about Sampoorna Ahara, I feel, is that you have a dabba system that caters to a lot of people in Bangalore. So very different set of challenges there as well that we're hoping to hear from you. And you also have seasonal products. All of that are edibles. So, the kind of variety of challenges also that you would have on your table would be very different. So, very keen on hearing from you through our discussion today. So, welcome, Shamla.
Thank you, Hamsa. It's a pleasure being here and talking to all of you.
Thanks, thanks. So, we want to also discuss a little bit about um, how both of you have started on this journey, and I think that's very, very, very key to this discussion on sustainability, right? And if you could also talk about how that has inspired you to keep sustainability as a core in your business. So we'll do a very simple thing for all the discussions. Geeta, you will go first, and Shamla, you will go second. So Geeta, go ahead. So lovely to hear from. Would really be nice to hear from you.
Thanks so much, Hamsa. मुझे पहले सूली पर चढ़ाना है क्या? So right up front, I'm the guinea pig first. Okay. So the journey I think is a very long journey, and I won't say it. The seeds are probably sown over a very long period of time. Sometimes when we are young, and I think in my case, my parents led a very sustainable life. We kind of take it for granted because in those days was probably an era of scarcity. We don't know whether it was because it was a scarce era that people were sustainable, or was it because they were sustainably oriented? Because almost everything in the house got reused, everything got recycled. Whether it was milk plastic bags which came in became plant, for potted plants, or whether it was oil which got, whatever oil you used for cooking also got applied in your body. So the thing is that I don't know what that mindset was, but it still continues in my parents' home. a baseline already there. And that's why maybe when I was in my recent journeys, I was probably more attuned to it, that when I saw the other extreme of things of how we are consuming and me as a person consuming, because what you grow up with, you kind of take it for granted and you push it away, that this is all old fashioned and above us, right? Now this is the new era and you want to embrace Westernism, you want to embrace consumerism, and you're very different. But anyway, to cut a long story short regarding the sustainability journey, I think for me, the first aspect that started me off on the Parama Naturals journey was sustainability for the self. That is sustainability for a person over their lifetime. My daughter had fairly severe asthma and allergies when she was young, and she would react to almost any skincare product that I would use on her physically, or she would react to the strong fragrances in the product. That was one element. So this was sustainability of the self, and I was looking for. So I would do ghar ke nuske for things for her, but as time would progress, I would look at adopting some kind of so-called natural brands and see how can I actually go use that, because I was looking at getting back to a full-time corporate job again. And I found that almost everything, again, she was still reacting to, whether it was the baby oil or whether it was moisturizers subsequently. So this was about sustainability for the self. And I realized that many of these things, either the baby oil had mineral oil in it, or the moisturizers had a plethora of chemicals, which even I, despite being an engineer by training, I could not recognize most of those names, right? And then when you start reading about them and you start learning, and you realize, my God, these things are kind of creating havoc on the body. Because, for example, an ingredient like parabens, which was introduced way back in the 1930s, but it was only as recent as maybe about the 2000s that people started becoming aware about it, and they started saying, okay, parabens free, or does this have parabens? And the consciousness was growing, right? But in all these 70 years, there was havoc which was created. So sustainability for the self was very important in the products. And the second one was, of course, sustainability for the environment, because over the years, I've always been very passionate for the environment. I used to work on greening the Pune Tekris, or working on the biodiversity park status, going and collecting kachra on the Tekris, or even for my child's project, it was a Lego project, and the topic was water management. And we tied up with an NGO from Pune called Jeevit Nadi for a river walk, just so that we could see what all are the different river or water sources in Pune. And when we walked along and we saw so much of garbage which was filling up there was so much plastic, there was garbage, there were bottles, all floating on the rivers. And when you go along with an environmentalist, one is, as Indians, we've become quite blasé to looking at garbage. We take it in our stride, right? There is garbage somewhere, we take it in our stride. We've learned how to have blinkers on. But when you go along with somebody who's well aware, and they talk about how when the fish is ingesting it, there is a problem. What is happening on the plastic that leaches into the water and the water bodies. We went to a sewage treatment plant and we found that almost 60 to 70% of the homes is actually going untreated and going into the water bodies, right? So that when you become more and more aware about these things, and you say, oh my God, I don't want to start something else. Neither do I want to be consumer, but sometimes you're completely, you feel at a loss for options. But at the same time, when I was looking at starting, I said, I want to build it all in together and not have compartments in my brain, and see how we can do it. And so I think that was the start of the sustainability journey. So it was, the products needed to be so pure in my mind that you can actually eat them. So while it's Shyamala who's in a food product business, and I'm in a skincare business, but I believe that the skin eats too. And therefore, every ingredient of mine is food grade, and every product of mine can actually be eaten. So I tell some people that, if short of oil for your malga puri, for your idli, please use it. But so I don't know whether I've answered the question or I've gone round and round, but this was the start of this sustainability journey. And so then when it came to packaging, also it was all about trying to embed these principles into the packaging. That is, of course, there should be no chemicals which are going into the water bodies, whether during the production of the chemicals, whether it is when you apply it on your body, or whether it is after wash off. Also, there is through the gray water it's going in, right? So I wanted it to be sure that there is not a single chemical in the entire process. The second one was, how do I make sure that my packaging is sustainable so that it uses recycled paper or recyclable glass, or even for that matter, where I was forced to use PET in some of the senior care products where people requested for there to be PET, that it's recyclable. So that, and in fact, that's interesting actually. The cost of recycling PET is actually lower than, and the energy consumed is much lower than recycling glass. Have glass packaging, but that has its own challenges, and we'll come to that later. But making sure that every single part is recyclable, if not already recycled. And definitely not, so therefore avoiding all multi-layered packaging, therefore avoiding single-use plastic, all avoiding Tetra Pak kind of things. So I think it's gone a little longer, but let me hand it over to Shyamala, and let's see how that aspect of the sustainability went. There's just a small thing, sorry, I forgot to add, that the reason came in very strongly was not just the allergies that my daughter faced, but it was also when I attended a medical conference in France, and the doctors presented how more than, they said more than 1 out of 3 people above the age of 60 would have cancer. And that is what they projected for Western Europe. And they said, while colorectal cancer was one of the biggest ones, but skin cancer was a second, and not just because of the UV rays of the sun, which is popularly seen, but it's because of the chemicals in leave-on skincare products. Okay. So those products that you leave on, like a moisturizer or like a serum, those are the ones which are causing havoc in the human bodies. And I think that for me was the aha moment, because I was getting into wellness. And I used to think about skincare as, beauty, and, beauty to theek hai, but, you need to have dietary supplements and nutrition and things like that. That is more important for health. When I saw that this can be a huge preventive of issues of hormonal disruption, COD, cancer, which are all linked to skincare chemicals, that is what gave me that, that kind of josh to look at starting a skincare company. So now finally over to you, Shyamala.
It was so interesting listening to your journey, Geeta, because there are so many parallels in my own journey. While I was listening, I was just smiling and saying, I might be saying exactly the same things that you just said in some parts. For example, growing up in a way that sustainability was not something that we even spoke about or thought of, because it was a part of life. It was just the way we lived. It was our normal. So growing up in Bangalore in the early 90s, there was no single-use plastic. There was, if we had to go and get back some dosa and sambar from the hotel, we had to carry our own boxes. And I used to go with my grandmother, because she'd say, you know what, if you want sambar, you have to remember to carry the steel dabba, otherwise they won't give you sambar. So as a 6-year-old, I'd be very excited being given this responsibility of remembering to carry the steel dabba to get the sambar for the dosa or the idli that we bought back from hotels occasionally. So things like that, I think, kind of made it normal. So we didn't really think of it as, oh, we're being sustainable. It was just, oh, we're living our lives and this is how it is. And I actually grew up at a time where through my childhood, without even realizing it, plastics and single-use disposables entered our lives, and it just became so comfortable that I think we realized it, and our eyes opened only when we started seeing piles of garbage all over the place, and we're like, this is not the city that I grew up in. This was never there. Where did this come from? How did this happen? So for me, definitely, I think my parents and even today their lifestyles continue to be very sustainable. They don't throw away anything that can be repaired or reused. I don't think they throw anything away at all because a lot of what they have is also very good quality stuff that if something breaks, the handle of one becomes the handle of something new, that my father's like, oh look, I've made this thing. Having grown up that way, it kind of gives you that base, whether you realize it or not. Later on in life, you start questioning, you want to go back to living in a way that is sustainable without even knowing any of these terms. So for me, my journey consciously as an adult started, I think, in 2011. A community of us, we had people, we were just trying to see what we can do to make the garbage problem in Bangalore a little less of a problem. And that's where I started learning about solid waste management, about source segregation, about lot of these things in childhood. These were introduced as very conscious concepts as an adult, and started seeing the impact that the waste that we generate on other people's lives. So we visited the landfill in Mandur and Mavalipura, which is in Karnataka, and it was heartbreaking to see what had happened to that land, to the people, to the environment. And from then on, my personal journey towards eliminating single-use plastics, eliminating as much as moving to sustainable options, just being more conscious of the way we live, right? So I think that journey started there. I was doing a lot of awareness sessions with the group as well. Shout out to Dr. Meenakshi Bharat and Vani Murthy for being the amazing mentors that they were. And that's also how Hamsa and I met. So we were in it. And from eliminating single-use disposables and source segregation, it went on to having low waste events. So all the prototypes for the zero waste, low waste weddings that have become much more popular now. We were like, how do we make sure that we don't generate waste at our weddings? Because that had become our lifestyle. We weren't using any of these products in our everyday lives. Why would we use it to celebrate an occasion? So it started from there. And after I got married, so my husband is a lifestyle medicine doctor. So basically he specializes in treating and helping people with lifestyle diseases like diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, obesity, PCOS. All of these are very common today. And basically how Sampoorna Ahara started was he would have really long consultations, because a lot of these lifestyle diseases have their roots in your lifestyle. That's why they're lifestyle diseases. So basically in your diet, your exercise, and it's not possible to have a 5-minute consultation where you say, okay, I'm prescribing this to you, go. You're actually telling someone to change their entire lifestyle, and that really takes time. And we started finding formats of making that more digestible through courses and all of that. But at the end of it, people would say, you know what, we're completely on board. We understand what you're saying. We want to do this. This is amazing. But if only someone would cook like this and give us every day. And that's basically where the idea of Sampoorna Ahara came in, just to make it easier for people to eat healthy. And we struggled ourselves. So when we switched to a plant-based diet, I switched to a plant-based diet about 8 years ago, and there were no off-the-shelf options that were plant-based or whole food plant-based that were healthy and plant-based at all. Maximum you would find salted peanuts, and that's it. Okay, so you in an entire supermarket with a million other things, that's the only thing that you would find that was somewhat healthy, even that with high amounts of salt. And it was just, we realized that there has to be someone who's making it easier for people to eat this way, because how else are we going to expect people to, even try this? It's just impossible. So when we thought about Sampoorna Ahara, we thought of, okay, how can we have as many things as possible that will help people eat healthy. So meals, cakes, cookies, sweets, snacks, nut butters, vinegars, like anything, condiments, like your kodbale and mixture and muruk. These are all South Indian snacks. And to like your sweets, like your halwas and your laddus. So we were looking at several what we call in business SKUs, and we were while we were thinking about it, we there was I don't think there was a point in time where we said, oh, we should be sustainable in our packaging. It was almost unsaid. It was almost like, yes, of course we're going to do it, but we had to find a way, because if anyone knows how the food industry works, packaging is a nightmare. It's just a huge deal. There are too many products, and I mean, plastic is extensively used. In fact, one of the recent research studies showed that food packaging is the highest contributor for plastic waste in Bangalore. Much of it is multi-layered, so very difficult to recycle or impossible to recycle in some cases. And of course, it's all single use, and it was just a huge challenge. And we really, I mean, the journey and the challenges, and when we come to it, I can tell you it still is quite a ride. But we were very particular that everything that we use should either be reused, should be either compostable or recyclable. And we were trying to eliminate plastic completely. Plastic free packaging is what we were looking at, because when it comes to food, a lot of the plastic becomes single use. And even otherwise, we were like, let's see how we can kind of do away with plastic in our packaging, also because there's food that's going to be in it. So this was where we started, and this is why I think sustainability is such a core part of who we are. We are also a social enterprise. We are India's first whole food plant-based social enterprise. So as a social enterprise that's working on health, we want to do good for people and community. So how could we be doing good if we were not thinking of the main thing, that is packaging, right? We had to also look at the waste aspect of it. We had to be a low waste enterprise, because you can't create another problem while trying to solve one. Everything is so interconnected that it just doesn't work that way. So that's a very long story short. I think I have spoken. I feel like I've spoken forever. So
No,
yes, I think.
no. Yeah, yeah. So thanks, Shamla and Geeta for sharing that. So much of resonance that one problem should not just sort of lead to another. And when we
Absolutely.
talk
I
about
almost think that though she started the food business, but I was like resonating with her like every little bit, because the whole idea about this also was the same thing, that while I was at home and taking a break and I could do all this thing for my daughter or even for myself, I realized that when you are working, there's just no time that you have, right? And so while I'd started delving into Ayurveda and holistic healing, most of the products that were available were either time consuming or messy or thing. And so the people who are the worst hit are the urban folk, the working women, the working people, or people who are leading very fast and busy lives. So how do you actually incorporate that? And I think I could resonate with everything that Shamla you said. Sorry, I interrupted you, Hamza.
no, no, no. Yeah, yeah. No, actually, both of you also sort of, it's very obvious there's a lot of hard work that goes into figuring out sustainable packaging, right? There's research, there's design. How will it looks very nice in front of you as a producer, but will it sort of sustain the delivery thing? It's literally getting handled over and over at multiple junctions, warehouses. How do you look at shelf life? Where does these are all places where plastic sort of trumps from a perspective. This will work. I don't have to think about, once it leaves my place, I don't have to worry about all of that. Of course, the time frame for edibles is very different versus what you have, Geeta. But I'm sure there are like common narratives in this space. So would be really lovely to hear both of you share some of your insights on determining, why you chose certain materials for different types of products. Because you would have to have incorporated how it leaves your facility to actually reaching the customer at the end.
Okay, so I think the first thing, and this is, I think, a little one step before what you've started out in terms of the packaging material. The first concept that actually I tried to build in, and I'll give this as an example, and maybe this is something for all the viewers to reflect upon. If any of you, or almost every one of you, would probably be using hand washes, okay? If you can go home or go to the supermarket, take the same like-to-like brand of a soap and a hand wash, okay? And you see how long a soap lasts, or before that, you read the ingredients. The number of ingredients on a soap bar versus the number of ingredients on a soap liquid hand wash are extremely, it's like zameen asman ka farak, okay? Second thing would be that a soap case would be wrapped in a paper, or even if it's in a plastic, versus a bottle of plastic, right? Some of them are reusable, and then the refill pack of that again comes in a multi-layered plastic, right? So I'm now extrapolating it to skincare. A typical moisturizer or moisturizing lotion that you look at buying, let's say it's a bottle like this, okay? Typically, a moisturizer has this much water. About 60 to 70% is water. Okay. Then there is about 5 or 10% oil. And then there is a whole bunch of chemicals that go into it, which therefore means that basically those chemicals are for what? For emulsification, because you need to mix oil and water. There's preservatives, because the moment you're mixing oil and water and organic material and water, there's bound to be microbials. You want to have a shelf life, all of that, right? So you're, first of all, creating that much more plastic because all you're doing is packaging a filler. So therefore, how is it that we can look at making sure that you are not packaging a filler? With the filler, what happens is you're consuming also that much more. So you're almost consuming, let's say 1 bottle of oil is equal to about 6 bottles of moisturizer. So here in the design concept itself, you're looking at reducing the amount of plastic that you generate. But then you want to, oil is chip, right? Oil is sticky and yuck. And how can you have that? So what you do is you're basically trying to you mix the water and oil straight on your body. So straight after a bath, you put a little bit of oil, a few drops, and you spread it all over your body. And you've made your own body the manufacturing base of the moisturizer. So it's a mindset change. The mindset change, and which goes into the design thinking process, it is, of course, a lot tougher, because the moment you're entering into a business proposition, you're not here. I'm not an evangelist, right? I'm a business person. So if I'm a social worker and I can keep talking and shouting from the rooftops about all of this, is great. People might listen. But at the end of the day, I felt, as a person who's also using it, that I might be aware about it, but do I have an option? And if I don't have an option, I go back to my ways. That design thinking into this. So the first idea was about shrinking the amount of plastic itself that you're using. The second one is, how long can it last? So even in the oil, it can be filler oil and an effective oil. So an oil can be, because we have the active ingredients we're using here, you just probably need 2 drops. And for example, all I'm doing for my face is, after a bath, I take 1 spray like this, I rub it, and then this is it, okay? So this bottle of oil, which seems like 30 ml, it lasts for at least 4 to 6 months. So I have customers who say, how do we come back to buying your products? Because your products never get over. Okay? Because it's just that, so you're basically elongating. Whereas today's mindset, actually, from business point of view, is, how do I get the consumer to consume more? So if the shampoo was a thick shampoo and I used little blob, now can I make it liquidy so that a lot of it falls out, so that I'm using much more? Or toothpaste, if I needed 1 drop of the toothpaste, now can I have the person have this big long amount, so that the tube gets over faster, so that I increase my turnover, right? That's the typical, sorry, and I'm an MBA myself, that's the typical, I actually get my revenues to increase, right? So So these are challenges when you have to wear different hats. So coming back to choosing the materials. So this was one aspect. And then when we looked at, therefore, but see, the thing is that I can have a sustainable product, but when, all of us have compartments in our brains. So I might want to advocate sustainability, but when I'm using a product, I want to feel that it's luxurious. I want to feel that it looks good. And today, most of the packaging, the lovely plastics, or even the glass for that matter, I mean, basically, there's a whole lot of color which goes into it. There's a lot of, the structured inserts inside for making sure that your packaging lasts, to make sure that your preservatives are there. So there is a lot of thought process, like you said. There is a lot of thinking that goes into it. So, for example, one of the things that I did about how do I make sure that the product lasts really long, okay, was actually introducing a spray. What this does is three things. One is it makes sure that amount that comes out is only as much as you need. So you're not wasting your raw material either. The second one is that it makes sure that your product is not coming into contact with air. So I'm reducing the need for a preservative, right? And then finally, ultimately, because it's lasting this long, it's making sure that it doesn't become rancid. And you feel nice using it. So all that is there inside is actually an oil. I mean, I won't say it's an oil blend with lots of active ingredients. But at the end of the day, and so in the design thinking also, how do I make sure that it's not a sticky oil? How do I make sure that this oil will not go rancid, even if somebody decides to open the bottle? And each of these products is actually refillable, each of these bottles. And because the ingredients are all food grade, they can be reused for almost anything, right? Then it came to, therefore, after this, what is the packaging for transport? Because now I have a glass, and as requested by several users who are using bottles inside the bathrooms that we cannot afford to have glass breaking, so I had to use PET. But I made sure that, okay, this is PET, which does not use color, which which is as recyclable, which is food grade, and can be reused for your idli pori idli pori oil that you use on your table. But so what we tried to do was, because another thing is, as I said, the luxury feel comes a lot from the multi-layered plasticky paper, which has a gloss to it, which might have a plastic coating to it, which might have colors which are not necessarily organic. So we tried to go in only for recycled paper. And notwithstanding that, we also, I used to feel very terrible when I used to order from one of the online stores, and it would come a chota sa bottle, then there would be a big box inside of which it would be there. And those days they would use a lot of styrofoam inside. Now at least there is, that honeycomb kind of paper which is there. But basically, there is a lot of, so even if we say that this is compostable or recyclable or whatever, but you're using that much of a resource. So I went back to the thing, how can I make sure that I don't, when I'm shipping, because it was mostly an online business and I started during COVID times, that everything is going to be shipped. How can I minimize that? So we went in for a complete design thinking on this. And instead of filling this up with something else, and first of all, this was rigid enough for it to be shipped directly. I didn't need a super box on this. And this itself would become the box for the bottle. So inside, so this kind of protects it inside this itself. So you're preventing, so it's just actually a frame of the same cardboard material, which is made of recycled paper, as a holder inside. And this was all standard. And we tried to use only vegetable colors here. And only thing is I had to change the size of this for fitting in a bottle here. The same box, but with a different size. And so we tried to minimize that. And of course, with all of this, I didn't need to put in any kind of extra fillers or extra packaging materials to keep it safe. The third challenge was, of course, is the shelf life, which, as I said, part of it got extended because of the fact that I was using sprays instead of using something that you're spilling out. But it's also the formulations, using natural ingredients and the natural antioxidants in turmeric and the essential oils that I use. I made sure that we could have a long enough shelf life that could be physically possible without using any preservatives at all. And last but not the least, so we still have issues on when we want to ship overseas. We are forced to have sometimes a single-use plastic because we need to shrink wrap it. But that's about it. So it's like a spectrum. I mean, I finally make myself feel a little happier when I look at that it's a spectrum from 0 to 100. And yeah, I'm not that drop in the ocean of sustainability, but I'm closer towards the 100. There are some, like obviously I'm shipping it, so I'm using petrochemicals, right? It's going into the larger scheme of things. Otherwise, everything you should actually make the tail at home and do it. So I said, okay, fine. In that spectrum, it's a small amount that I'm looking at doing. I am kind of compromising upon, but on the larger scheme of things, it is still extremely sustainable. So I don't know whether I've answered all your questions, but yes. So our focus has been, as I said, only to use, so for example, glass, and all environmentalists will tell you this, that at least glass is inert. And it will sink to the bottom of any ocean or any river body, and therefore it will not vitiate the aquatic life, right? PET, on the other hand, will float. So we tie up with organizations like ProEarth, and we recommend to people also to tie up so that entire thing of recyclability happens. Within Pune, where we have customers and we do deliveries, we collect their bottles back. Many customers are so evolved, they say, please don't even send us the outer packaging, or they collect it for us in bags, and we actually reuse a lot of that. But when it comes to shipping across India, we're still challenged. When it came to designing bottles, so these are the two broad areas, and of course for butters, etc., we do use metal. Now, metal, from again sustainability point of view, at least it's recyclable. The boxes are reusable. Yes, it is. It depletes the earth's crust or whatever, but it is at least recyclable. So between glass and metal is what we look at for our butters, and for bottles we look at these two. And and packaging, of course, all of this. But no, we actually explored 100% recyclable packaging material, which was made only from waste cotton from cloth mills. But we found that rigidity was not strong enough for us to ship. So we started needing an extra box outside. And that's when we realized that was not sustainable for us.
Geeta, I also want you to share your experience about, you also looked at those yellow potlies that you had started out, which was in collaboration with the self-help group, right? And I thought that was another layer of sustainability. So please do share about that.
Okay. So as Hamsa mentioned to you, that one of the core ingredients that we have in our products is turmeric. One of the things I realized in my holistic wellness journey was that turmeric, which is a powerhouse of nature and is core to the Indian Ayurveda and home remedies thing, which is, cut ho to haldi and burn ho to haldi, and if you have acne, you should do a haldi uptan, etc. But realize that there was no, in practical daily life, all this had gone out of our daily existence. Even though in South India, even today, in some of the villages now, it's no longer even there in cities, that women will have a yellow skin, because there's a Friday ritual of actually putting haldi on your thing, and you change your tali thread with that, right? But it has gone out of our daily existence, and we have resorted to so many chemical-based products. So I wanted to embrace turmeric as a core ingredient for skincare, because that was, you eat it also and you apply it also. And we were able to incorporate. We invested in a facility which was making a pure extract of turmeric, where you can actually, just using high pressure recycled CO2, not CO2 that you're generating, but recycled from and reobtained from beverage from the beverage industry. With using high pressure, you could actually extract a very pure extract of turmeric, where you were getting the benefits for the skin and without the yellow stain. Okay, so we could separate out the antioxidants which could penetrate deep inside the skin in the part or the fraction of the turmeric powder, which is the turmeric oil. That has a very small molecule called termerones, which penetrates deep inside, and the yellow dye remains outside, which we are not using. And we started using that side product, or that way. For us, it was a waste product, even though there were enough takers for wanting to buy that powder, because they feel that it can go into their masalas, make it look as though there is turmeric. But we started using that to actually dye fabric. So we make potlis. We employ self-help groups in Pune, who then work on with community women, micro entrepreneurs, women who work in the grassroots. And so they help us dye the thing. They help us. Some of them we've got pre-printed, but otherwise they help us even do the block printing on this. And yes, so this we try to take this further, so that we're not using any other color dye for this, but just using the byproduct or the waste product haldi that we are generating after the extraction process. So thanks for the little tag, Hamsa.
Yeah, Shyamala,
your actually interestingly, haldi. In fact, that's how the history of how the West discovered the powers of curcumin was this. That in the 1950s, when they were looking at both cloth dye as well as then food color, turmeric extract started getting exported to the US. The curcumin, which has become so popular today for anti-inflammatory and as an immunity booster, used to go to the US in the 50s. It started getting used in mayonnaise, and of course before that was for cloth. And then over a period of time, when the West discovered that haldi is turmeric and Indians are healthy, and this is turmeric and it's a clean part of turmeric because they've extracted something, and so now they can start marketing it as an immunity booster. That's how it became, the popularity of it became so much, and that now it's become turmeric latte. Our haldi doodh has become turmeric latte there. So it's interesting marketing concepts.
Yeah.
Sorry, carry on, Shyamala.
Yeah. Yes, Shyamala, your challenges would have been very, very different. You would have actually had to rephrase, rethink, redo everything, because just the plethora of products that you have at Sampoorna Ahara would be huge. So please share some insights.
So so let me start with the meals. So with the meals in most cities, meal deliveries that are, if you order anywhere from a Swiggy or Zomato, it comes in a single-use disposable plastic container because it is convenient and it's cost effective and all of that. So when we were rethinking it, first we were thinking, okay, we need to use something that's reusable, and of course the steel dabbas were the first go-to. We also went for the hot boxes. So we were kind of looking at both of these options and seeing, okay, how do we go about it? How do we do? So with us, because we are a whole food plant-based initiative, we don't use any oil in our cooking. Okay, and we are a low salt initiative as well. So the salt that we're using is very low. So our food does not have preservatives. So you have to cook fresh 2 meals a day, and it will not last you beyond a certain time. So our lunch, for example, we kind of say 1:30 is the cutoff by which time you have to eat your lunch, and dinner is 8:30. So given that we had to work with timelines for how long our food would stay fresh, and also make sure that it is sustainably packed, we were juggling quite a bit. And the third thing is delivery. So because we are also a whole food plant-based enterprise, it's not like you'll find 50 people in your building who are gravitating towards your meals. It's people who are in Electronic City and Yelahanka, and there's someone in Whitefield, and there's someone in Kengeri. So it's all across the city. So we had to also look at how do we get this food from our kitchen to the rest of the city in these reusable boxes, and we also had to get the boxes back. So in terms of logistics, it's double the transport cost. And if anyone has lived in Bangalore, you know how expensive it is to get from one side of the city to the other. Our public transport system is not as extensive as, let's say, Mumbai or Delhi, where our metro is coming up now, but we don't have the local train system where you cannot really use public transport to transport these carriers, taking it from one place to the other. The third challenge that we faced was we have balanced, doctor designed balanced meals. So our meals have both raw and cooked components. So it's not just 5 boxes of cooked food, it's 2 boxes of raw, 3 boxes of cooked. So when we were using the hot box, we realized that you cannot put your salad in a hot box. It will get spoiled and it will just be disgusting. Neither can you put cut fruits in a hot box. So at one point we were delivering both boxes. So we would use the hot box as well as the steel box for a single meal. And it was a lot. So that's where we started. And then we evolved over the years. Now we have several different types of meals, some that are better suited for a hot box and some that are better suited for a steel box. And there's also this thing of, for us, for our meals even to last, and this must be a lot of information, but just walk with me. It'll make more sense in a bit. So even with the cooked food in steel boxes, we had to cool the food down and send it. And people are used to eating hot, right? And we had to cool it down for shelf life, because if you're not using oil, the biggest thing is it's going to get spoiled, especially during the summer months. So we were working through several challenges, and this was the least of our challenges when we realized that we had to set up our own delivery system, because we could not use existing delivery networks like Swiggy, Zomato, etc., Porter, Dunzo. Bangalore has all of them, but we couldn't really use any of them at the time. I don't think Porter was operational. Dunzo had just started. So we couldn't use that because we needed, first of all, we needed food to be given and the previous box to be collected and brought back to the kitchen, which was not possible with these third-party delivery systems. So irrespective of anything, we had to build our own delivery network. And anyone who's worked in supply chain, logistics, delivery networks know that that's a separate business. It's a different business in itself. And none of us really had the expertise to do this. But we were like, we have to try this, we have to solve this issue. And we built our own delivery network with autos, because we realized we also couldn't, like, yes, if you price your meals at like 1,500 per meal, then delivery costs will work out. But there's no sane person who's going to pay 1,500 for a single meal every single day, right? That's unaffordable for most people. So we also had to make sure that the cost of delivery was looked at. So we built a delivery, long story short, we built a delivery network. We actually had a software that I'm one of 6 co-founders. So one of the other co-founders knew how to use R from his PhD, which had nothing to do with anything we were doing, but we actually used R to code and build a delivery network. And we also had to spend a lot of time with each them through all the various things that we were doing, because it's a challenge enough for someone to think of the fact that they're going to eat meals without oil and with red rice and with this much greens and with low salt and no dairy and all of that, but to also then tell them that, oh, the meals are cooked fresh, but we cool it down before we send it to you in these boxes, blah 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 blah. So we realized that we needed a really good CRM team in place. We were the CRM team in place for a year. We were just talking to various people and taking them through these things, because one is, we anyway had to educate people on the food aspect of things. We anyway knew that the only way this is going to be sustainable is if people supported the idea of sustainability and supported sustainable businesses. So we in parallel to actually being an enterprise that makes food, we are also an educational enterprise, because it's so important. It's almost 50-50, right? Where 50% of our resources go into educating people and 50% into them actually buying the product, and that as a service in itself. So we basically were able to, I think after a year, things were smoother. We now have a software that does routing for us, and we have a system in place. We've come a long way. There have been a lot of changes. The other thing that we also had to introduce, this was during COVID, was we had to introduce packaging that was single use, because people who were infected with COVID, we could not take the risk of taking the box back from them at that time. We couldn't put our staff, our drivers at risk. So we had to do contactless delivery. We had to make sure that nothing infected was coming into our kitchen, or we didn't want a single person in our staff to fall sick or to get COVID because they were interacting with customers or anything of that sort. So we scoured the earth and found a company that actually does compostable packaging that is food grade, and that this box I can actually pour sambar and it will not spill. Right, so we actually found this packaging. This is a smaller version of it. It's a whole meal box that they have, and that really came to our rescue, because we needed an option that worked, and we needed something that was sustainable. We didn't want to use single-use plastic even during COVID. So this really worked well for us. We tried out a few different models that they had, and we found one that worked best with, we have like 5 or 6 dishes that go in each meal. And those boxes work well, and we could send everything from full-blown South Indian and North Indian meals to pastas and burgers and everything in these boxes. And it is fantastic because it is home compostable, so you can actually compost this in your home composter. But to our delight, we had so many of our customers saying, we really love these boxes that you sent. It becomes arts and crafts for the kids, and it kind of gets new life each time. So some people are using it to make things, some people are able to reuse it, depending, like if it's a burger box, for example, it's dry, right? So the box itself is still clean after you eat your burger. So people were reusing it to store stuff. We actually heard back from people saying this is so unique, this is so creative. We also had to we also used this to package a lot of our sweets and snacks, again during COVID, because of contactless delivery and things like that. And it was a great hit among people. So with the meals, we also had to go through several different types of compostable packaging. There are others, but we needed something that would travel well, right? Because you're traveling from one end of the city to another in an auto, so we also needed something that would travel well. So that is just the meals. So moving on to some of our other products. Again, as Geeta was saying, we first looked at glass, because for us, it's an advantage because these glass bottles are extremely reusable. So this is a peanut butter that we make. It's a single ingredient product, no salt, no nothing. So you can use it for sweet and savory stuff. And it really sits well in a glass bottle. It doesn't get, it stays fresh for longer. You can refrigerate it if you want to extend shelf life. We also wanted it to look standard and look a certain way. So these glass bottles really came to our rescue for within Bangalore deliveries. We had different sizes for different products. This is one of our best selling products, which is vitamin B12 and flaxseed, fortified flaxseed laddus. So these glass bottles really help because it helped for two reasons. One is naturally because of the sustainability and reusability that this type of glass offers, but it also helped in keeping the products fresh for longer. Because it's not airtight, but it's almost there. And we also started collecting back glass bottles from a circular economy of sorts, where we would collect back these glass bottles from our customers in Bangalore, our regular customers. In fact, they'll have a carton box full of glass bottles, and they'll say, if your driver's coming this side, can you just arrange a pickup? I have like 20 glass bottles that I've saved up over time. So it also became nice because the community started understanding. They said, instead of sending one glass bottle, they would actually collect 20, and they'll be like, here, now you can come and pick it up from us. We've had people send it to us. If they were driving by our kitchen, we would have them drop it off and go. And it was really wonderful that the community was on board and the community was really doing this. The other thing, the next type of packaging that we use are steel tins. Our tin boxes like these. So we started using these for two reasons. One is our sweets, right? So that sweets basically can be a little sticky. So when you put them in glass bottles or anything that's vertical, they tend to kind of, instead of 10 laddus, you have one goop. If it's a really hot day and if it's traveling too much, right, it becomes very unpleasant for people to handle. So boxes like that, we actually were able to make dividers again with recyclable material, and we could have our sweets neatly arranged. And this is one of our assorted sweet boxes, just showing you for what we've done with the packaging inside. So, and these became great options for gifting. So when people wanted to gift, they wanted something that looked nice, and these, golden steel tins really work well for that. And also for outstation orders. So within Bangalore, we had our own delivery units that were delivering. It was fine. But for outstation, we couldn't send glass because our glass bottles are much bigger and they will shatter if sent. And people are not ordering one thing; they're ordering, let's say, 6 or 7 bottles, right? You can't put them in anywhere without them shattering. So we use these compostable boxes of different sizes to pack the sweets and snacks, and we would put that into tins like this. So outstation orders actually go out in these tins with people's orders are usually, again, as I say, 6 to 10 things. So it would fit into these tins because we found that otherwise they were just getting damaged. And because these were food products, the challenge that we faced was rats were eating into anything. So we had to find something that rats wouldn't eat into, and this big tin was the solution to that. So we would send it out. We still actually send out a lot of our outstation products, pan-India products, in these tin boxes, which, they can throw, the courier company can throw it around. They can be rats, they can be anything. Nothing's going to happen. Sometimes it goes dented, but that's about it. The things inside remain safe. We are constantly also exploring new packaging options because for food businesses, if you're making something baked, right, like chips, and our chips are all oil free. So in order for them to stay crunchy, it needs to be airtight. And plastic is a very convenient material for that. And to find an alternate uh, material has been quite challenging. We're still working to see what options, we're still not there yet with it, but we are, the options we have now are okay, but we are still working on finding new ones. And yeah, so our packaging journey has, I mean, it's a journey. It's been, a lot of trial and error. We don't have one type of packaging. We've been trying very hard to kind of, say, okay, one or two things, but because of the kind of products that we have, it's simply not possible. We need, like we have spreads and butters, we have vinegars in glass bottles. So it adds that layer of complexity. And one of the latest products that we introduced is tofu. So if you see tofu, you will only get it in plastic, and there's good reason for it, because tofu is one of those products that it needs to be protected, and it needs you for it to stay fresh and for it to actually reach you as tofu, it needs to be in something that's quite hardy, or that actually holds it in place. So essentially that's why you see it in plastic. So we kind of started subscriptions. So we have curds and tofu, which we send out in glass bottles all over Bangalore, and reusable. So a lot of people, reach out to us and said, "My God, I've been waiting to buy tofu in sustainable packaging, and this works out well." So I think things like that have really pushed us to experiment and get more things. We're also seeing how we can transport glass better with honeycomb packaging, and we're still kind of in the experimentation phase there to see if we can ship some more of these things pan India. But that's kind of where we are when it comes to packaging. We're looking at things that are also lightweight. So if you look at glass, the biggest problem with food is it becomes very heavy, right? So if you have 6 bottles like this, it's heavy. If you drop it, everything shatters. So we're also looking at more lightweight options. We're looking at more how would you say, more uniform options. One of the challenges again with the steel boxes is that in India we don't have a standard mold where these steel boxes are made. So if you go to a shop and say I need a size 6, then it doesn't exist. So every set or every 10 will probably be interchangeable, but not the 10 after that. And obviously, when you're sending out 100 meals and you get them back and you're trying to wash them, they're going to get mixed up. And the kind of grief that has given us is unbelievable, because we just don't have a standard mold. And these are things that, you're just like, oh my God, this is such a simple fix, right? If we just had size 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, and all size 6s were interchangeable with other size 6s, that's it, you're done. But that's not how it works. We also were looking at sleeker packaging, where it's just a single box with several compartments. Again, if you don't want plastic touching your food, you don't have options in India. There are some countries that are doing it. We're still talking to some of them to see if we can get sleeker packaging for meals. Yes, I think I've spoken quite a bit about the various kinds of packaging that we have. Someone has asked about the strength of compostable box. So these boxes are quite sturdy, especially if you're sending meals and things like that. They don't really move unless you put weight on it, or unless you're like pressing it in or anything like that. They're quite sturdy as it is. But when we are sending it outstation, we put it in those tin boxes so that it adds that layer of protection to the box. And this is not the box that we send sambar in. This is a different mold. They have different molds for meals, and that it looks slightly different. I don't have it with me to show it to you right now, but it doesn't spill. I can tell you that.
So, Shamla, just before you sort of close, also want to ask about, you also used banana leaf as a layer in some of your boxes. So please share some little bit of.
Yeah, I thank you for bringing that up, Hamsa, because completely kind of forgot to talk about it. So, in a 5-layer steel box, sometimes we'd have more than 5 dishes going out. So, and some of them would be dry, like if we had a vada, right? You can keep it with rice, you can keep roti and rice together, but we didn't want it to touch. If roti is kept right on rice, it kind of, the roti becomes soggy and there's rice stuck on the roti. We also make an amla pickle that goes out in every meal, a fresh amla pickle. So we needed something as a divider between let's say rice and amla pickle or rice and roti. And we were thinking, okay, what shall we use for it? We didn't want to again see, as Geeta also said, right? Like, even if these materials are recyclable and even if these materials are, relatively good for the environment, you still don't want to keep using too much of it. So we were thinking, okay, what can we use that is even simpler? And we said, why don't we just use banana leaves? So we cut out banana leaves in circles and we use that as dividers. So you'll have rice, you'll have a banana leaf, and then you'll have a vada on it or a roti on it. So we use maybe about 2 banana leaf circles per box, and that works out really well because one is, if you're eating in office, the banana leaf itself becomes kind of a plate to keep the roti on. So you just remove it, you keep it, and you use it. And people love it, like it kind of makes you feel like home because you're eating on a banana leaf, and it worked out really well in terms of, it
Very
compost. You
nice.
can, even if you put it with mixed waste, it's going to just break
It's
down in
fine.
2 days.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, of course, while doing all of this, there's a certain part that is cost. And I think cost is really a big determinant. It's a big thing that eh, across businesses, not just sustainable businesses. How do you sort of look at costs for doing like this? Like how you said, investing in, your own network of delivery, your own kind of a design cut for, like how you spoke, right, Geeta, about the boxes that all the oils go out to. All of that is a cost. And, how do you sort of arrive to a cost equilibrium which justifies usage of these of sustainable packaging? Geeta.
Okay, it's actually a challenge all the time. So, and I think Shamla will also feel the same way. But I think if you're constantly endeavoring to drive it down, and as I said, it's compartments in people's heads. So there is a certain amount of knowledge creation that we need to do. But see, people, as I said, people never buy for sustainability. People buy things for what is the benefit that they are going to get. Sustainability is okay, a nice to have for most people. It's unfortunately not a necessity to have, unfortunately. And I feel really sad about that. So at the core, of course, and Shamla will probably agree, the food has to deliver what it has to deliver. And in my case, the products have to deliver what they have to deliver. Packaging and sustainability is a feel good and an extra add on, right? Notwithstanding that, but because of that, you cannot also spend too much on it. So therefore, like for example, and in fact, probably Shamla, you and me will connect after this call, and I had some thoughts to share with you. So what we do with our glass bottles, the same thing, in a similar kind of a modular pack, because what our boxes do is they're all modular, so that while shipping, we don't have a problem. So this will fit into this, okay? And so this provides, because this is rigid, this provides the extra cushion. So then these things we tested by, if the courier guy throws it, what will happen, right? So that you're actually minimizing. So the way we could minimize was by standardizing on the sizes, so that the cost of the die becomes minimal, because all you're doing is now 2 heights. Packaging is also minimized in terms of the because it's bada chota nahi hai, so you don't have to put in an extra box after that. And I think, but the thing is that, for example, I'll give you a small example, and this is not a direct question, but we're looking at mindset change. In our case, we were looking at trying to see how people could move from a moisturizer to an oil, and you had to get people to overcome the thought that oils will be sticky and messy. What we discovered is that when people try it first, only then do they get convinced, right? Now, in the case of, it's a famous case study of the Chic shampoo or the Hindustan Lever's case, where they brought down the shampoo bottles into small sachets. So whether it was affordability or whether it was trial, this was probably the best or the most convenient and the most common idea that was promoted to me by the packaging guys. Please just make a sachet. You can put in 1 ml of the oil in that, and people can try it and they find it's good. And in fact, even today, if you go to any of the topmost brand or multi-brand outlets, they will get you a little sachet. It'll come, with another box. It will come with a sachet. Well, not wanting to have any single-use plastic or any, recycling, because, one of the main things that you go when you go on takeaway walks, you see these gutka packets, so you see these sachets, they're too small for it to even get collected. They're the ones that are there just ubiquitous and all over the place, right? So my whole idea was, can I do something which I can give a trial, and yet it should be not single-use and it should be reusable. So I created these little tiny bottles for a big one, so that there is an equal size small tester bottle. It can also work for travel, because when you are traveling, you also cannot carry a big bottle with you, but you want to take your daily essentials. So I made this as a series of trial or travel bottles, so that you can see whether it works for you, it doesn't work for you, and go on. But see, all these things come at a cost. Yes, they do come at a cost. In fact, and anybody who's been into packaging, whether you make it this size or you make it this size, the cost of the packaging is the same. In fact, very often it might even be higher, because there might not be as much volume generated at this size. And so therefore, it's a challenge. But because the products last long, so you say, okay, fine, then the cost of this is a fraction of the product cost, but I won't even say anything less about it. It's a challenge maintaining the cost. But what we have tried to do is to see how modular can we make it. So for example, now what we've done is we have, so that people are not trying out one product at one time, we've made complete tester kits. We said, okay, fine, this is a tester kit and it is a travel kit. So you can carry this along with you, and you can try out the entire range of top to toe self-care in just this much. So, and this will last you for at least anywhere between 2 weeks to 2 months, just this much. So, in some cases even longer. So it is about educating, and slowly it will grow. I mean, it's not, see, food, what happens is that it's instant, it's connected directly to health, and therefore people are willing to say, okay, fine, I want this purity, and therefore I'm willing to make that compromise as well, because this is what the brand stands for, and I'm not saying anything. But when it comes to beauty and skincare, because it's an, okay, fine, you know what, I just want that instant solution. It doesn't really matter to me that it is so pure. It doesn't really matter to me that it's so sustainable. So there is a lot of education which is required. And similarly, probably it'll happen with you for packaging. While they value your pure foods, they'll say, I don't care if it comes in a plastic box, right? So this is your passion which you're trying to push through and embed it into this. So I'm sure I resonate completely with Shyamala. So it's, I think we're trying to see how we can modularize it. Like, for example, in some cases where we don't have pre-printed boxes, where we're trying new products, for instance, making a complete box which will have, because we have to meet FDA requirements as well of all the material printed on it. It needs to have the ingredients, it needs to have the certification, everything on the box. But if I pre-print it, I will have, and if it's a new product, I don't know what is the kind of potential it might have. Can I afford to pre-print? Because the minimum order quantity for a printing size, for a mold, or for a mold to be made, it becomes quite prohibitive. So in this modular thing, okay, we've structured that, okay, can we put stickers? Again, non-multi-layered stickers, but I'm trying to overcome that. See if you can see it close by. It's actually a sticker on this, but made it look as close to a pre-printed box as possible, right? So it's coming through the modularity and not necessary. And so I think it's just coming back to the design thinking, because you still need to see how you can be optimized to prevent wastage. So one is the cost, and the two is the wastage.
Yeah. Shyamala, Over to you.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with Geeta when you say it's a challenge. It is a challenge at the end of the day. And even for instance, right, if you're looking at these type of boxes, it only becomes economical when you order them in a certain MOQ. So you need to be confident that that's the volume you're able to sell, because when you're buying it and storing it, again, anything that's compostable doesn't store very well. So it's not like you can just say, okay, I'll buy it for a year, I'll buy 10,000 units and I'll just store it somewhere, because then you just have insects making houses in them. And it doesn't work that way. It's not the same as storing something that's plastic or any other material for that matter. So it worked out for us because we did have a substantial MOQ, that we could actually negotiate with the manufacturer and get it at a certain cost. But even that is a challenge when if the same thing, if you were using disposables, it is going to be much cheaper right off the bat. However, with the meal boxes, right, with the steel boxes and hot boxes, that is absolutely, it works out very well economically over time. So once you've set up your delivery system, once you have your customers, so the initial investment is quite high, and frankly, I don't think a majority of small businesses will be able to afford it, because you're spending so much right off the bat. Yes, of course, it's paid itself back, maybe 3-4 times over now. But do you have that initial investment where you're able to buy 300 steel boxes, right? And this is 300 steel boxes for 100 people, because you need to have more than double of the boxes, because there's always going to be one with the customer and one with you, and you need to have room for emergency where you're not able to pick it up or whatever it is. So the volumes are high. You need to invest in a good dishwasher, for example, and these are things that a lot of food businesses don't even have in their radar. It's not even in their expense. But you need to have a good dishwasher. You need to have people who are committed to making sure that everything is clean, because again, this is food. So our food, most people subscribe to it. So you're eating this food every day. You cannot afford to get anyone to fall sick even on one single day because of hygiene issues or because of whatever else, right? So everything has to be, it's very grueling, especially if it is everyday meals. It's slightly easier with things that have a slightly longer shelf life, that you can stock up and things like that. It is slightly easier, but definitely reusable boxes have paid themselves back. It's the initial investment that's the problem. Even with these type of boxes, if you already have an MOQ, or if you have a similar business who is okay with collaborating instead of competing, then you can order boxes and brand it to your requirements, but you can order together. So that's something that I think small businesses, maybe if you don't have conflicting interests but you have similar packaging needs, it's a great idea to collaborate, because it just brings it works well for both of you. You can always brand it differently. You can have labels that are totally different and change the look and feel of the product. Again, with these type of boxes as well, they only work well if you order, at least I think the MOQ is 1,000 units, or if you want it at a certain price. No, the MOQ is 1,000 units, but if you want it at somewhat of a competitive price, then it's much higher than that. Yeah, so packaging is a challenge. I see, actually, I'm very hopeful, because there are a lot of solutions that the West has that I'm like, oh, if we had that in India, I think this would work very well for a particular product. But I think it's going to take time for some of them to come here, and it has to, because a lot of them are if steel manufacturing, and perhaps I don't know, also cost, in terms of how do you bring that down to be able to manufacture smaller units, let's say 100 or 50, which is what a lot of small businesses will be looking at. Yeah, and we kind of are we are very bootstrapped, so we are very particular about where we are buying our glass, how we're getting our labels printed. Again, our labels are also it's not multi-layered, it's just paper with glue, right? So we're very particular about where we're getting all of these from. Again, all the information has to be there on your label, so you're also trying to make sure that we are actually reworking, we are rebranding in terms of the look and feel of our labels at this point in time. But it is a challenge, and as Geeta rightly said, you have to you have to take into consideration that things have to be a little flexible, right? Like, it's easier for me to get 100 boxes like this and have labels instead of getting it printed on the boxes, especially as a small business. Just doesn't make any sense otherwise. So
There's just one
Geeta,
point which I'll quickly add,
yeah,
because I know we are probably running against time, is that the bigger challenge also, for which I think, and probably Shyamala will agree with me, is for a business like Sampoorna Ahara and for us, is the kind of margins that we have to play with and compete with. So for example, I'm sure if she's making flaxseed laddus and comparing that with, let's say, a rava laddu, and people have this in their mind that ye laddu kyun itna mehenga hai compared to this. The same thing happens with us when they look at, okay, why is your oil more expensive than something else? So in their mind, we have to compete on that price because people are buying an oil. But in their oil, if there is a sunflower oil as a filler, which is at 100 rupees a liter, versus I'm using virgin cold pressed coconut oil, which is at least at 700 to 800 rupees a liter, even at high volume procurement costs. How do I compete on that? But the customer doesn't see that. They just say oil to oil. If I'm putting in a pure extract of turmeric, which costs anywhere between 10 to 15,000 a liter, versus if I'm using a chemical active ingredient, which may be not more than, let's say, 100 or 200 rupees a kilo. So how does that, but the thing is that you cannot, so education will take time, and this impacts also the cost of the packaging, because what you've left with to work on your packaging cost comes that much narrower, because you're already squeezed on margins. So I just thought I'll add that.
absolutely, for us, because all the ingredients that we use are expensive, simply because all our sweets are sweetened with dates. I don't know what I said. All our sweets are sweetened with dates. And we use a lot of dry fruits. We use a lot of cashews and almonds. These are premium ingredients. They're going to cost you what they're going to cost you, and they're also organic. So you're right when you say people are going to be like, oh, but this is this much, why is yours so expensive?
yeah, and I know we're running against time, so I'm going to sort of club the last two questions together. One is, at the end of the day, you're giving something for a consumer. Somebody is sort of at the end of it. So all the narrative, no matter what we say, we are in this consumption era. What does the customer have to say? One, in terms of the product purity itself, and two, in terms of the packaging, because at the end of the day, it has appealed to some people at some point of time. So combination of the two, and I know that both of your businesses are like really relevant ones in this day and age. So we're in this together for the long haul. So just quickly share those two, and then we sort of close in for the day.
So yeah, we're constantly working hard. Like she said, we're constantly looking for alternatives as to how to make it more appealing and how to make it the same. Because at the end of the day, the consumer is king, right? They are the reason for whom we exist as a business, at least. So, for example, we have tried to bring in innovative solutions we have for gift packs. We have made inside the boxes. We made these frames instead of having these sponges. But we've made, gift cards using handmade paper. We have put in a nice little sleeve on it so that it looks attractive, again with handmade paper, so that, because so that you're trying to give in that experience, the feeling of luxury to the person while not going back on your core, these things. But yes, something as small as this, there's a feedback which many customers gave me, is that, oh, these products are packaged in these very pretty boxes. So that's how this was the response, initial one. But even these ones, brown boxes are so passé, and can we get colored ones? So the search is always on, can I find recycled paper which is strong, which is not using chemical colors, because you know the phthalates can cause cancer and PCOD, PCOS. You know that this can cause some breathing allergies. So all that search is always on. So I wouldn't take up too much time on that. But yeah, it's a challenge, because as I said, people have compartments. You and me also like it. It's not, we like bright colors. It gives you, because there's a science also behind it, right? There's a science. There is a frequency to a color. That frequency resonates with you at different parts of your body, and that feeling should be there. You should get a happy feeling when you're opening it. And all this is intangible studies. Now somebody can say poo poo to it, but there must be some subliminal reason behind that. And so can we look at doing some of that? We're trying. So it's over to you, Shyamala.
So for us, we are local community, right? And local as in not just geographically, but also our immediate, let's say, Achutan's patients, so people who have a deeper connection with us than someone who just came across a website or, is just looking for something on Google and found us. We find that they are very supportive of the cause really calls out to them, simply because they are people who've been on a journey. The thing with specifically whole food, plant-based and health products is that a lot of the core community, they've been searching for this for a very long time, and it's solving a problem that is medical, that's very physical. So people who are like that, the first first how would you say, the first touch customers of us, they're very supportive. They are happy with the fact that we're putting in so much effort into every aspect of it, not just the health, but also low waste, and also the fact that we are a social enterprise. So just quickly to go over that, everyone in our kitchen, there's no chef, right? So everyone comes from, most of them are not educated, they come from very, very poor backgrounds, and we train them to do something that's very specialized. So they are actually working with equipment and working on making food that only specialists can otherwise do. So they understand the challenges, and they're very supportive. It's solving a real problem for them. They're very open to getting back to us if there are slip ups, or if there's something that they're back in private, they're happy to brainstorm with us. So we have that community. But obviously a business cannot survive with just, like the few handful or the few hundreds of people who are your immediate community. With a larger community, there is a slightly mixed response, because as Geeta also said, right, like, yeah, they might want healthy food, but they're not really bothered about what you put it in or how you pack it. At the end of the day, they're looking at, okay, this looks better, or this travels better, or this is how I want it because I'm gifting it to someone. So there are people like that. There are very few people who are like, no, it doesn't have a plastic seal, so I don't want it. There are people like that also who really want plastic. They want that extra layer of plastic, and it has to be sealed in plastic, which they have to tear open. Only then they're satisfied of the quality and of the safety of the product. And we can't discount that. I would say a majority of the world is like that, perhaps, or there are at least a good number of people like that. So it's a mixed bag. What we have done is we have learned to understand and work with different types of people slightly differently, and we are also trying to give people what they want, because at the end of the day, that is our problem to solve as the business, right? Yes, you want customers to understand, you're going to do a lot of awareness, all of that is there, but at the end of the day, it's your problem as the business to make sure that your packaging ticks all the boxes, and we are on that journey.
Thanks so much, Geeta and Shyamala, for sharing with us so many insights, so much to learn, and so much more to adapt. Hope this is a great takeaway for people who've attended the talk today. We will be uploading this video on YouTube shortly. So if you subscribe to our channel, you will actually get an update and notification as soon as the video is there. Thanks again, Shyamala. Thanks again, Geeta. Great having both of you here and everybody else who joined in today. I'm sure hearing all the yummy food that you've been talking about, Shyamala, I'm definitely hungry and it's nearing lunchtime. So uh, thanks again. Thanks again for coming.
Hamsa, for having us here. It was really, I mean, a lot of the questions that you posed were points to contemplate, and it was so lovely listening to Shyamala. Both the resonance of the journeys, as well as all the thought which is going there, and I've got lots of ideas that I want to discuss with you and get your inputs in with your searches, Shyamala, too. And
Likewise,
yes.
Geeta. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No. So it was really lovely. I mean, I didn't realize how time flew, and that we're really so beyond the time that Hamza said it was.
Yeah.
But yes, these challenges of small businesses, artisanal products are there. But it's exciting time. It's like the passion that you bring to it that makes every day special.
Likewise, Geeta, such a lovely time talking with you and listening to you and your journey. It's just, as you rightly said, I think I also want to talk to you and pick your brain on a few things. Special thanks to Hamsa and Anil and your entire team for organizing this. I think we need platforms like this to talk about our experiences and see how also people know what's happening, and also encourage other people that it is possible. You can have businesses that are sustainable, that are sustainably oriented. So, and thank you each and everyone for attending this session. It's a Saturday morning.
So this session, the Zoom has been supported by a larger network called Zero Waste Asia. They're one of the first guys who went against incineration and burning of things, particularly multi-layer plastics. So this has been possible because of them. They've lended us their online. There were some people from Zero Waste Asia who were actually part of the call. So we will send this out to the larger network because that's the right ethos group that we would want others to take inspiration from the two of you. So yeah, thanks. Thanks everyone. Yeah, bye.
Bye. Thanks again.
Bye. Thank you so much.
To everyone for attending. Yes.